Ibrahim Traoré heard about the accident at the gold mine while finishing his morning briefing. He didn't know at the time that this was just the beginning. Once he saw the truth, there would be no turning back. The presidential palace in Ouagadougou was still cool in the early morning, as the day's oppressive heat had not yet set in. Traoré was sitting at his desk reading security reports from the northern provinces, where extremist threats required constant vigilance. 8 months into his presidency, he had set up a routine of security briefings in the morning, economic issues in the middle of the morning, and diplomatic issues in the afternoon. This was the rhythm of government in a country trying to figure out its future defense. Minister Kaber walked in without knocking, which was against protocol, and instantly sent a message of urgency. "Mr. President, there has been an incident at the Bujura mine," he said, sliding a preliminary report across the desk. "There are 17 confirmed deaths and possibly more trapped underground." Ray scanned the paper. The country's biggest gold producer was the Bujura mine, which was run by Goldtech International, a French-Canadian partnership. It was responsible for almost 40% of Burkina Faso's official gold exports. The story talked about an explosion in one area of the mine, followed by a partial collapse of the tunnel in the deepest part of the mine. Traoré asked as he reached for his phone. Goldtech sent out their emergency reaction team. Kaber answered that they want us to keep military and government workers out of the way so as not to get in the way of their work. Kaber's tone made Traoré look up. "You don't sound convinced." The defense minister hesitated and looked at the door to make sure they were alone. "It's probably nothing, sir," he said. "But my cousin works in security at Bujura, and he called me off the record to say that Goldtech employees were destroying documents before the emergency response team even got there." The report said that Roosevelt had learned to trust his gut during his 8 months as president, thanks to his time in the service. Something wasn't right, so he stood up and said, "I'm going to Busa, sir." Kaber warned that Goldtech had specifically asked them not to run this country, which was interrupted by Minister Traoré. Kabori nodded and said, "I'll have a helicopter ready in 30 minutes." Kaber then left to make the necessary arrangements. Traoré went to the window and looked out over Ouagadougou. As the city woke up, it was a mix of colonial architecture and new buildings for traditional markets and companies owned by foreigners. Although Burkina Faso has been the world's fastest-growing gold producer for the past 10 years, its people have never been rich. The presidential palace is a reminder of the country's time as a French colony. Its wealth stands in stark contrast to the poverty that plagues most of the country. The math didn't add up, and before he joined the army, Traoré taught math and had always been annoyed by sums that didn't add up. His helper came in with an update that added one more thing to this confusing equation. "Mr. President, the French ambassador called immediately to ask for a meeting before you leave for Bujura. He didn't say why, just that it has to do with diplomatic protocol during industrial accidents involving multinational companies." Traoré looked at his watch and said, "I've already left. Let's talk about protocols after I've personally evaluated the situation." 2 hours later, Traoré's helicopter flew up to the Bujura mining complex in the northeastern part of Burkina Faso. The action was very impressive. A huge industrial complex was carved into the dry landscape, with processing plants, administrative buildings, and worker compounds spread out over several square kilometers. In the middle was the main mine entrance, which was now surrounded by emergency vehicles and people as the helicopter circled for landing. Traoré saw that the company's private security guards were setting up a perimeter to keep locals and the press away. His military aide pointed out another helicopter that already had French official markings on the pad. As soon as they landed, a group of executives in hard hats rushed to meet them. Leading the group was Philippe Marin, Goldtech's regional director. He was a tall, imposing Frenchman with silver hair and the confident manner of someone who isn't used to being questioned. Next to him stood Jean-Claude Laval, the French ambassador to Burkina Faso. His presence here confirmed Traoré's suspicions that this wasn't just a normal workplace accident. President Traoré, Marzhan met him with a smile that didn't reach his eyes and said, "This is unexpected. We're in the middle of a delicate rescue operation." "Then I won't keep you," Traoré said. "I'm here to observe the rescue efforts and speak with survivors." Ambassador Laval spoke up and said, "Mr. President, maybe we could give you an update in the administrative building." Things are under control, but the site is still dangerous for people who aren't mining experts. Traoré praised how smoothly the reaction went. I had no idea that my safety was covered by foreign law enforcement. Laval's smile got bigger. France has a lot of experience with mining operations. We're just helping one of our corporate citizens in an emergency. Before Traoré could answer, there was a noise at the entrance to the mine, and workers were bringing up a stretcher. Without hesitation, Traoré walked toward it, ignoring the executive's objections. The hurt child was barely awake, and his face was covered in cold, black dust. Tears had run clean down his cheeks, and a nurse was giving him oxygen while checking his vital signs. Traoré knelt next to the bed and asked, "What's your name, brother?" The miner's eyes flickered open and tried hard to focus on Traoré's face. Slowly, recognition set in. He spoke in a low voice through the breathing mask. "Wedrao." "Musa, what did they do down there?" Musa the miner looked nervously at the gold executives who were hovering nearby. He then grabbed Traoré's hand with surprising strength. "Not Section 7, he yelled. "They said Section 7 collapsed, but it was Section 12 they're lying about." Marshan walked up to the man, who was clearly shocked and confused. "Section 12 is inactive and closed for maintenance," he said. "Why would they lie about which section collapsed?"
Traoré asked.
The voice of Wedrago got so low that Traoré had to lean in closer. "The children," he whispered. "They don't want you to see the children." Before Traoré could ask for more, medical staff snatched the stretcher away to a waiting ambulance. He then looked at Moran, whose calm face had begun to fade. "I want to go down," Traoré told Section 12. "Absolutely not." Marshan answered right away. "The mine is unstable, and we can't guarantee your safety." "I wasn't asking for permission." Ambassador Laval then broke his diplomatic front a little, telling the president, "Mr. President, there are serious liability issues. The mining deal between Goldtech and your government makes it clear that the government can't get involved in emergencies that are handled by the company. Allow me to see this limit." Traoré questioned me, because I don't remember giving up my right to look into a disaster on Burkina Faso land. There was a tense silence, and Traoré's security detail moved closer, hands on their weapons. Goldtech's private security was also tense. Finally, Marshan struck a conciliatory tone, saying, "Maybe we can find a middle ground. We can give you surveillance footage from all parts of the mine for full transparency, without extra risk." "I appreciate the offer," Traoré said. "I'll look at that video after I've seen Section 12 for myself." He knew that Traoré wouldn't be stopped. Marshan reluctantly asked a mine engineer to go with him, while they got the lift ready to take them underground. Ambassador Laval tried one last time. "Your predecessor knew how important corporate autonomy was in the mining sector," he told Traoré in a low voice. "That's what keeps investment coming into Burkina Faso." The descent into the mine was quick and disorienting. The elevator cage shook as it went deeper into the earth, and the air got warmer and thicker with each second. During his military career, Traoré had been in bunkers, tunnels, and caves, but this was the first time he had been on a vertical journey into the Earth's crust, where people worked in conditions that nature never meant them to endure. The mine engineer, a nervous young Frenchman named Gerard, explained that they were passing through the main commercial levels, where regular extraction took place. "Section 12 is one of our deepest exploratory levels," he said, his voice echoing in the metal cage. "Since Mr. Marshan said it wasn't in use at the moment, there should be no risk in showing me an inactive section." "Procedures," Gerard said. "I'm familiar with them." Traoré replied, "Mr. Gerard, I was a military officer before I was president." The elevator stopped 700 m below the ground. When the doors opened, they showed a dimly lit tunnel with steel supports. The air was hot and heavy with dust, and you could smell the explosives used to break through rock. "This is Section 8. Gerard looked at a digital tablet and said, "The collapse was in Section 7, just ahead. We shouldn't go any further." Traoré then turned to the military aide who had been with him and asked, "Captain, what section did the injured miner mention?" The miner replied, "Section 12. When asked where Section 12 was, President, Gerard shifted uncomfortably and said, "It's further down and to the east, but I don't have permission to take you there." Studied the tunnel map mounted on the wall. It seems straightforward enough. We'll find our own way, sir. I cannot allow. Captain Traoré interrupted, addressing his aide. Please ensure Mr. Gerard remains comfortable while we inspect Section 12. The captain understood, immediately positioning himself between Gerard and any communication devices. The mine engineer protested, but didn't physically interfere as Traoré and two security officers proceeded deeper into the tunnel network. Following the map, they navigated through narrowing passages until they reached another elevator marked Sections 9 to 14. Authorized personnel, only using the engineer's access card they had borrowed, they descended even deeper. The elevator opened to a tunnel noticeably different from the upper levels. The reinforcement was minimal, the lighting sporadic. This was not built for regular operations or inspections. They followed the markers to Section 12. The tunnel showed no signs of recent collapse or rescue operations. Instead, they found a heavy steel door with an electronic lock. The borrowed card didn't work here, so open it up. The security guards were told to open the door with all of their strength, and with a metallic groan, the lock gave way. What they found inside would haunt Ibrahim Traoré for the rest of his life. Section 12 wasn't a mine. It was a work camp. In the huge chamber, dozens of makeshift sleeping mats lined the rocky floor, and empty food containers and water bottles were scattered around. The most disturbing things were the small tools and helmets that were meant for children. My God, one of the security guards whispered. Traoré walked around the area taking pictures of everything with his phone. In one spot, they found a logbook. The clinical and detached entries gave a lot of information about worker output by age group. As young as 9 years old, were put on a list with their daily gold recovery goals. This is because they use kids to get into the narrowest veins. Traoré said in a controlled, rageful tone that adults can't reach. That they were exploring a side tunnel when they heard voices coming toward them. Traoré and his men hid just as a group of gold tech security guards arrived, led by a supervisor talking quickly into a radio. We've secured the site. The man reported, removing all evidence as ordered. The president won't find anything. Did you find the missing workers? Asked a voice on the radio. Martian's voice was negative after the explosion. At least 15 children ran into the emergency tunnels, and we're still looking for them. They can't talk to anyone, understand? Traoré had heard enough. He came out of hiding with his security guards standing on either side of him with guns drawn. I believe those children are now under my protection, he said. The gold security team stopped moving and slowly raised their hands. Martian's increasingly frantic questions could be heard over the supervisor's radio. Traoré kept talking on the radio. Your boss will have to answer for a lot of things. Mr. Marchant, I think you should get ready for a very tough conversation. Back on the surface, the situation had changed. News of the president's findings had spread, and now there were large groups of locals and workers' families demanding answers. Many of them were parents of children who had disappeared after being recruited by Gold for special training programs. Marchant and the French ambassador were trying to leave when Traoré came out of the mine carrying evidence, including documents, photos, and most shockingly, 3 children who had been hiding in a ventilation shaft while being scared but alive. Arrest them, Traoré said, pointing at Moran and his executives. CES will include child exploitation, human trafficking, and criminal negligence resulting in death.